Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. I am your host, Duck, and today is our Q&A session where you can get to ask me any question that you want regarding photography. Now, even though we do have a specialized Lightroom and Photoshop session, if you have anything related to either one of those two, it's not off the table for today. So pretty much anything that you may have a hang up on, go ahead and shoot me the question and I'll try to help you out. Okay? All right. That being said, I do have a couple of little things that I want to mention. Next Monday, I am doing a members only or Patreon members only event. You can see it listed here. And if you are a Patreon member, you should have received a notification about this upcoming event. And it is, I'm going to be discussing a very simple technique for helping elevate your composition. This is a technique that requires a little bit of practice once you understand the basic principles of it. But it's a technique that you can use out in the field to ensure that your composition is as strong as it can be. And more importantly, when you bring it home and open it up on your computer to edit, that's where this particular system comes into play in order to make your composition that much better when you edit it. Oftentimes, let me back up. I am a member of Photo Mentors, which is an online photo community, photomentors.com. And that platform, I offer critique to members who ask for a critique on their images. And often when I do these critiques, if the composition has flaws with luminosity and attention to the subject, making the subject stand out and things like that, I often use this three-tone process and as part of the explanation of what to look for in order to make the composition a little bit better. So often I will give a critique with some kind of suggestion for fixing it. So anyhow, hopefully if you are a member of my Patreon, you will join me next Monday, same bat time, same bat channel. Well, actually, no. You should have, it's a special link. You should have that link. And if you don't, contact me. I will send you the link. If you're not a member of my Patreon, please consider supporting what I do here by becoming a Patreon for as little as $5 a month. Okay? And of course, we have a couple of Patreon members with us right now, and I want to thank you guys because it's your support that helps bring these episodes live and to you for you to learn. The other thing I want to talk about is, and you'll notice that I have a little asterisk here. It's because it hasn't been scheduled yet, but I want to mention it just so you're aware of it. Robert Fielder of the Hartford Amateur Photography Group on Facebook, he approached me a while back about doing some kind of off-camera flash workshop in New Haven. And he and I have been talking, and we have set a date for the 17th of next month. And it's going to be a pretty lengthy workshop. We're looking about from 10 to 2. With obviously we'll have a little lunch break in between. We have a couple of models already on the books. So hopefully it'll be a nice little event. It is a paid event because we have to pay the models. But we're going to try to keep the cost down for everybody. We're looking roughly. We haven't set the price yet, so don't hold me to this, but we're holding it to about $20 to $25 a head for from 10 to 2. I will be supplying the majority of the equipment, but members can bring their own off-camera flash systems if they feel more comfortable with that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be right in the downtown area. I've already picked out a few really good photogenic spots. And obviously, once the event is over, you go home, you process your images, and it's requested that you share your images with the models so that the model has something to put in their portfolio as well. So if you're interested in joining us, just keep an eye out because, like I said, we haven't publicly advertised this yet, but we're looking to do that very, very soon. So keep an eye out for that. Okay? Anywho, let's get down to the brass tacks, shall we? What do you have problems with? What's your pressure point? What can I help you with? Anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm getting a note. Set up professional audio and audio settings. Oh, this is new. Zoom is always doing something to me every so often. I'm not seeing anything here. Okay. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So
no problem.
I don't know what Zoom's trying to tell me there. So what are the questions? Do we have any questions, or do I need to pull something out of the air to talk about?
I sent you an email. You did include it with your lecture about being a paid photographer, but I sent you a contract that I have used. And if you want me to send it to you again,
when did you send it?
About a month ago, when you were doing your last extra for those of us who are Patreon members.
Okay, for some reason it's not really ringing the bell. Hold on, let me see.
Okay, you know what? Let me send it to you. Can I send it to you now? Will you be able to look at it?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Before you send it. I do have it. Here it is.
Okay, good.
Okay.
And let me go get my copy while you're doing that.
Okay, here it is. All right. Add it to my drive. Organize. All right.
This,
Okay, so let me open up my drive and pull that up. Oops, wrong folder. Contract.
I pulled up somebody else's contract and I got mine.
Event photography agreement. Okay. All right. Is it okay to share this on the
Yes,
screen?
you may.
Okay.
Yep, it's called Event Photography Agreement. Yes, go ahead and share it.
Okay. So let me first share this crazy thing. Okay. And where is my desktop? Okay. All right. Event photography agreement between Bill Delane, Aaron, after the photographer, and undersigned Aaron after client. All right. So I take it this is probably a boilerplate contract that you
Yes.
downloaded and modified?
What I did, Doug, is I looked at several contracts and I took what I liked
Okay.
and I made my own.
Okay. Before I go into this, I need to stress, I am not a lawyer. Anything I say here cannot be construed as legal advice, because when it comes to legal contracts, I just have a layman's knowledge. However, I can share with you what I have learned over the years. And the first thing you have to understand that a contract serves a couple of things. One, it becomes a hard written document that that discusses and puts down into a concrete form what is being offered for what. All right, so a contract is between two people. One person is offering a service, the other person is offering some kind of recompense for that service. And in this case, the service is you as the photographer. You're going to be going in, taking photos, doing something to those photos in order to give the client something tangible that they can then in turn pay you for in one way, shape, form, or another, whether it's currency or chickens out of their backyard or whatever it is. Okay? Contracts also serve to protect both parties. And that is done because everything is written out. And both parties, when they agree to the contract, are agreeing to the conditions of that contract. So when they agree to that contract, they have a certain expectations of what they're going to be getting during that exchange. So for you as a photographer, what the things that you need to put into your contract is, what are you going to give the client? What is it that they are expecting to receive from you? All right. And also, what are you expected to receive from the client? All right. So, let's see. Terms and conditions. All right. So for right off the bat, what I see is this is an agreement for something between you and the person that's going to be signing it. Okay. What that is, I don't know yet. This agreement contains the entire understanding between the photographer and the above named client. All right. It supersedes all prior and simultaneous agreements. The only way to add or change. All right, so that's pretty boilerplate, but I'm still not seeing what. All right, okay, so here it is. An hourly rate and deposit for reservation. $160 per hour for each hour of the event. All right, so I'm seeing how much. I'm still not seeing the what. Pre-event consultation, designated appointee. The client can choose a designate. All right. Okay, so that's attendees with cameras. All right, how to handle that. Processing time, copyright. All right, so I'm not seeing the what. What is it that you are delivering? So right off the bat, that's the one thing that's really standing out on this contract is it doesn't clearly state what it is that you're offering. What is it you're selling?
Doug, I think what I did is, and I never used this. I think what I did is I made a template, because obviously what one client is going to want is different than what another client is going to want. So if I talk to a client on the phone, then I would take this and I would make a contract based on what he wanted. Unlike
but even that, what you just said, make your life easier and include that in a template, so that way you don't have to constantly be thinking about, oh, what's missing from this template that I have to add to it. All right. For me, all right, and this is for me, all right. One, I have a lousy memory. All right. So, and secondly, I may be working several deals at the same time. Okay. And I also offer a variety of services. All right. So each one of those services has its own requirements. And because I'm juggling a lot of things at one time, I don't want to rely on my memory to remember what it is that's not in my template that I need to add. Okay, I'd rather have a template that has a bunch of stuff that isn't needed that I have to eliminate in order to fit. I don't know if that makes sense. All right, so for example, if I have a contract for event photography, all right, I may have a clause there that's specifically designed for birthdays, and then a separate one that's specifically designed for weddings, because that contract overall may apply to both. They share a lot of the same things. However, there may be an addition that is pertinent only to birthdays and don't apply to weddings, and vice versa. So it's easier for me to say, well, this is a wedding, so I'm going to remove the birthday line. Okay? That way I don't have to think about, all right, what do I add because this one's a wedding? All right? Because now, what if you forget something? Okay? So oftentimes it's easy to have that language already pre-written, and if you don't need it, you just strike it out rather than you having to think about it every single time. Does that make sense? Hopefully that made sense. Okay. Did I lose you, Bill?
It does to me. It makes sense to me.
I was on mute. I was on mute. So
okay, sorry.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. So, like I said, you know, a contract's designed to protect both parties. All right. And you do not want to be unprotected because you forgot to include something. All right. So now, let's play devil's advocate and say, okay, well, working with just this particular template, all right, you don't specify what it is that you're delivering to the client. Maybe you talked about it over the phone, all right, and over the phone you said, I'm going to deliver to you an album of 150 images, okay, and you're talking a digital album that they can go to and download images. And now after the event they say, okay, where's my album? And they hold out their hands, and it says, well, the album's online. And it says, well, that's not what I think of an album. An album is printed. An album is, you know, images, photos, something tangible that I can hold on to. All right. You said you were going to give me an album. Well, now, because it's not written in the contract, you have no grounds to fight against it. It now becomes a he said, she said. Okay. And that is very, very difficult to fight in a court of law. However, if that language is in the contract and it says, here it is, according to the contract, it says you will receive 150 images in a digital gallery or a digital album, all right? Then they have no grounds to stand on, all right? So what I suggest is just below where their client name and address stuff is and above the terms and conditions, place a section that specifies what it is that you are going to deliver. All right, now let me see. I'll show you one of my contracts and show you what I mean. Click on it. Let's see, 17 hats. Give me a second to pull up these documents.
What's 17 hats? An online
It's a client management system.
Okay.
It's a little tricky to get used to, but it's nice because I can create workflows. All right. Contracts. All right. Edit. Okay. I don't know if you'll be able to see this okay. But it's got the same preamble. This agreement is between me, the photographer, and the client. All right. And then there's a section here that I put in what the project name is. All right. And this makes it, easy to communicate with the client because the client typically gives me the project name, and I just put it in here. When, all right, when is this project date, okay, which is another thing that's missing from yours, all right, and a delivery time. When should you expect the finished result, okay? So that's clearly stated right at the very beginning. They don't need to search through any, paragraphs of text. All right. Then I write in a project detail. Okay. Now you can see here, this is just a placeholder because, like you said, the details may change from client to client. Okay. But I have the placeholder here. So all I have to do is refer to my notes that I took when I discussed the project with the client, and I will write it in pretty much, not quite verbatim, but a very clear synopsis of what it is that I am going to be providing. All right. Then right below, because I'm dealing with commercial images that require licensing, I have pretty much everything available to me. And here I just eliminate the parts that do not get transferred over. So for example, it says, subject to the terms of this license agreement, photographer, which previously specifies that it's me, grants to the client, which previously specify who the client is, also referred to as the licensee, the following rights. Okay? And the first bullet item is whether it's exclusive or non-exclusive. All right? And I have both of those listed, and all I have to do is delete the one that does not get transferred over. All right. But now I don't have to think about the language. I don't have to think about, what's the term? All right. It's all written right here. The next bullet point, is it perpetual or is there a time limit? All right. By default, my time limit is 1 year, but I can specify other time periods if needed. So if
when you say perpetual or 1 year,
perpetual means it's forever.
The client has the rights to the pictures forever.
Correct.
And 1 year you do make agreements like, okay, you can use this artwork for your campaign.
Correct.
For 1 year. Okay.
Correct. All right. But like I said, I have both listed, and I will just get rid of the one that does not apply. All right. Same thing with bullet point number 3. Is it unlimited use, or is it limited to a very specific use? All right. If it's limited, I will say limited to, and then whatever the limitation is. All right. Because that limitation may change from client to client. All right. It may be limited to a advertisement run of 150,000 copies. All right. Or it could be for use in a television ad. All right. And if I see it being used in print, then I know they've broken the agreement. Okay. So you need to spell everything out. Okay. What region? All right. For me, it's pretty much worldwide. Simply because a lot of people put stuff on the internet, and the internet really does not have a local reach. It's pretty much global. All right. So I tend to go worldwide, but depending on what its use is. If it's for print, you may say it's going to be print North America, all right, or print Connecticut only, okay. And then, of course, non-transferable rights, all right. That one doesn't have an or because pretty much all licenses are not transferable unless for some reason they request it, but that's very, very rare. All right. But this here is a good example of how you can pre-write your contract or your agreement, okay, and spell out all the potential uses. All right. And then at that point, all you need to do is edit out the stuff that you don't need. Okay. Now, if for your work you say, well, I don't really deal with some of these other rights, then you know what? Just write it out the way you would normally transfer your rights over, all right? However you would create your license. And then on the rare occasion that it needs to change, then you can edit it. But otherwise, have it written so you don't have to worry about editing it too much. And then the rest is just the preamble or the other things. Okay. Let me see. Okay. So right off the bat, that's the first thing I notice is that you're not spelling out what it is that you are delivering. All right, and that will come back and haunt you if you're not careful. Okay. All right. Now, hourly rate deposit for reservations. Okay, cost will be, let's see, signed contract, and a 10% deposit are required to reserve space. All right, so if this is your contract, this is worded a little weird, all right? You can just say that in order for this contract to be valid, a deposit of minimum of 10% needs to be made by whatever date. Okay, let me see. All right, let's see. Why? Oh, I see why. Okay. Oh, give me 1 second. My little drawing thing is not working. Let me launch that. Okay. Is it active now? Okay. So hourly rate, 10% deposit required to reserve specific session date. Okay, but there's no session date. Okay, so you're referring to something within the contract here that's not in the contract. Okay. Also, you're specifying 160 per hour, but you're not specifying how long you're contracted for. How many hours? Is it 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours? Okay. So that's the other thing. Okay. Parties agree to a pre-event consultation. I don't know if you need this, simply because by the time they're signing a contract, you've already had your pre-event consultation.
Okay.
All right. Designated appointee, yes, definitely. For events, you want somebody that you can fall to identify people in the party and who the VIPs are that you must photograph. This is very important. Okay. Attendees with a camera, how do you handle that? In the spirit of cheerful cooperation, the client agrees to give the photographer precedence over the attendees in order for him to take the required photographs. Yes. Will not be responsible for because of interfering by attendees taking their own pictures.
That was a problem I had when I worked for somebody else.
Yeah.
Pictures of baseball teams, youth baseball teams, and you get everybody set up, and all of a sudden the parents decide to go, "Hey, Johnny, look over here." So,
right,
people looking off camera.
Right. All right. So the other wording that I would suggest putting in here is let's put some of that burden onto your clients and let them know that. All right. So I'm going to switch hats here. All right. Back when I was shooting some events, okay. Actually, I still shoot events. They're not formal events. They tend to be like open house events and ribbon cutting events and things like that. I am there to do a job. And my job is to document certain key moments of that event. If I do not capture that key moment, as a commercial photographer, I cannot pass the blame onto somebody else. Okay? I cannot. I will fail in my job if I said, well, I would have had the shot, except so-and-so got in the way. That's not an excuse I can deliver to a client. All right? Because it is my job to deliver, those key moments. All right? And the same applies whether it's a birthday or a wedding or whatever. Okay? So what I normally do is if I see people around me with their own cameras expecting to be able to jump in and take the photo that I am setting up, me as a photographer, all right? And this happens all the time. You can't escape it, all right? And I've seen some photographers get pissed at the people around them. And in my opinion, I think that's the wrong attitude, all right? Because you're in an environment that is supposed to be festive. People are there to have fun. If you are, as a photographer, turn around and go, what the hell's going on here? Get the hell out of here. I can just see how working. All of a sudden, that just kills the mood. All right? Just totally destroys it. Now, all of a sudden, people are pissed off at you because you killed the mood and you're being grumpy and you're not allowing people to have fun. All right? So please don't be that photographer. All right? There are diplomatic ways of handling event situations like that. And normally what I do is say, hey guys, give me room. Once I got my shot, you guys can take whatever shots you want. And most people are very cooperative with that. All right. I've never had anybody pretty much say, you know, screw you, I'm getting my shot first. What ends up happening is the photographers behind me will part and they will become my own little barricade, all right, to keep others away from me, all right? And they become kind of like helpers. Yeah.
I just love it when you freeze.
It froze. Duck froze.
I froze, but hopefully you can still see me, right? I mean, hear me, right? Yes? Uh-oh. I am frozen? Whoa! What the heck happened? All right. Looks like looks like we got disconnected. There we go.
Wow.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because it is very hard to find non-New England, New York stuff in a sporting goods store. In fact, just before the Super Bowl, I was the last person to
Okay, what the heck?
a Tampa Bay hat. And I thought it was going to be good only for that weekend. Hopefully it's good for another year.
I hope it's signed in anyway.
For the moment.
What the heck? I'm trying to connect here on my end.
Joe, you
And
have a Seahawks.
what the heck? I'm having problems with Zoom here for some reason. All right, let's try this again. There we go. All right. All right. Can you hear me?
There we are.
Yeah, my Zoom just for some reason tuckered out.
It just froze
And I'm froze again? What the heck?
No. Before when you were talking,
Yeah.
where you left off was you were talking about Mike laws about people getting on the photographer's way, and you started saying, you know, the photographer needs to do better. So that's where you left off.
Okay. And it looks like I'm frozen again on my end.
Yes, you are.
Ah, what the heck is going on here?
But we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. All right, so
Alan, while Doug is trying to get his act together, I have a question for you, Al. Those pictures that you posted, I believe they were from Sturbridge Village. Okay. Excellent processing. What did you use for posting?
I've been Lightroom.
Okay.
I start off with Lightroom, and then most of the time, what I went Lightroom, Topaz Denoise, back to Lightroom, and did most of the color processing was in.
all right, it looks like I'm gonna have to close out my Zoom again and start it up.
Probably doesn't need it, but it gives it that little extra kick
Mm-hmm.
on the sharpened end. Thank you. Had a great time. It was nice day. Last Friday was a nice day for it.
All right, for some reason, my Zoom keeps freezing up here. And I don't understand why.
Well, if
You guys can hear me, but you guys can't see me. I have no access to my video. That's weird. It's telling me...
now that we with the box ahead and we'll be online during sundown, I can show this.
Oh, there you go. All right.
There we go. That's what I wanted. Close and stuff.
Close the program. I'm going to have to figure out what the heck's going on here. All right. Let's try one more time. Let's start this up again. All right, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. But I'm not getting any video. What is going on here? This is strange. I have no control over Zoom. It's locking me out. Frustrating. Frustrating. Everything was going great. And Zoom decided to act up. Okay. Can you
We can hear you.
But you can hear
We
me.
hear you, so.
All right. All right. So, where was it that we left off? That was the last thing you heard?
We left off with attendees with cameras. If you
Oh,
give me
okay.
sharing rights, maybe I can share my document.
All right. No, it's all right.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it says here I can share screen. Hold on.
Yeah.
Share screen. And let me share my. Here we are. I will share the contract. And as you can see, can you guys see the contract?
Yep.
Okay, we are now on to attendees with cameras.
Okay. Cool. All right. So, let's see. Did you hear me say that you don't want to be the grumpy photographer? Correct.
That's where we left off.
Okay.
Yes.
So typically, what I'll do is I'll get the people that are in my immediate vicinity who have cameras. I will turn them into allies. I'll say, hey, look, let me get my shot. And then when I'm done with my shot, you guys can get whatever shots you want. All right. And most people are happy with that. Because the one thing you don't want is the people that you're photographing, especially if it's a group, you don't want their eyes, going to a bunch of different photographers that are standing behind you. All right. So when it's your turn, when you're ready to take the shot, you need to command the situation. All right. And I will usually address the group and say, okay, guys, everybody look right over here at my lens. And I, if it's like ribbon cutting, I'll give them a countdown. All right. And I'll take a couple of shots first, give the countdown to make sure I get the shot, and then take a couple of photos after. And then I will, kind of like make an exaggerated move to step back, and I'll turn to the people around me and say, okay, guys, your turn. All right. And I say it loud enough so not only the photographers around me can hear me, but also the group that is posing can hear me, so that they understand that they have to remain in their spot for the other people. All right. And of course, you have to be cognizant of your time, because if you need to take the group to a new pose or a new location, give them a few minutes so others can get their shots, but don't let them hog that time. Okay. If you work cooperatively with the people around you, you can keep the mood up and happy and energetic without looking like the grumpy photographer who, is pissed off because, other people are taking, the same shot. Okay. All right. Processing time and DVD. All right. Do people still do DVDs?
Good question.
Well, it's your contract.
And at the time I put this together, yeah, people were doing it.
Okay. All right. So DVD right now is old technology. All right. Theoretically, it's still viable storage technology, but what people have turned to now are thumb drives. All right, so you'll be delivering. You want to update this to reflect how you are going to be delivering the images. All right, how do you normally deliver your images currently? All right, whether it's a private gallery online that they can download the images. Can you hear me? Can you guys still hear me? Or I just completely lost you again. Okay.
Hey, we can see you.
Now you can see me. Okay.
Hot video too.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. I just relaunched because everything froze up on my end.
We noticed.
And it's still looking. This is very strange because according to my system here, everything looks great on my end, and I don't know. It's Zoom. Zoom is doing some weird, crazy stuff.
And you have the paid Zoom, right?
I have paid Zoom, and I got good connection on the internet. I got good processing on my CPU. I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing it. This is what's so frustrating about this technology.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing you this time.
Okay. All right. Let me. Okay. All right. I'm gonna stop that sharing and go back to sharing mine. Where are we? There we go. Share. Okay. Good. All right. And there we go. Okay. Hopefully we'll get back to normal here. All right. So what was I saying? Oh yeah. So you want to update this section here about your processing time, and instead of and DVD and processing time, maybe processing and delivery.
Okay.
All right, make the heading a little bit clearer of what that section is. All right, and then specify how. All right, now there's a couple of thoughts here. All right, you can put it in the terms and conditions, and you have to understand what these terms and conditions section is. All right, these are the written descriptions of what is expected from this contract. These are the nuanced things that pertain to a particular contract. All right, and for me, the order of how these things are presented are just as important as what. Okay. So, for example, there are things that pertain to what is promised, all right, such as the processing time and how the images are delivered. And there are things that pertain to instructions, all right, such as designating an appointee to help the photographer how to deal with attendees with cameras and things like that. All right. Consider rearranging this so that the what of what you're delivering is higher at the top. All right. That is a little bit more important than the how of the event. Okay, or what the client is expected to do. Okay, so if you were to break it down into photographer and client, all right, put what is expected from you as the photographer up higher on the contract, and what's expected of the client below that. All right, because you got to understand that the client is the one that's going to be, really reading this contract and trying to figure out what it is that the contract is saying. So you want them to read what you're promising them first before giving them their instructions. All right. So consider rearranging this little section here. All right. And then just float that up. Okay. And it doesn't have to be overly wordy too. And the other thing about contracts is that they don't need to be written in legalese. All right. Real world language is just as effective, if probably not better, as a contract. Than having a wherefore this here contract is written in this flowery language. All right. You don't need that. Okay. Process of copyrights and model release. All right. Copyrights. The client has permission to make an unlimited number of copies of prints and blah 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 and use for non-commercial good. The photographer retains copyright. I would go ahead and change that to ownership.
Change ownership, okay.
All right. You have to understand that you're going to be writing this to somebody who's a layperson and probably very unfamiliar with copyright law. All right. And the word copyright may not be clearly defined in their own head. All right. We as photographers, when we say copyright, we know what copyright means because, we're involved with it. But Joe Schmo, who's, wants you to take pictures of their daughter for her 16th birthday party, may not be fully aware of what copyright means. Okay. So ownership puts it a little bit more into language that they can understand. And it clearly says you as the photographer retain ownership. All right. Now, that being said, you will also need to explain what the license means in a little bit more of a everyday vernacular, okay? Because a lot of people says, well, what's this thing called a license? All right, so you kind of have it spelled out here that they can make copies and prints of the original images provided from the DVD, which are going to change to however you deliver them now. and use and distribute the images for any non-commercial purpose, which is great. Okay. Okay. Now you say copyrights and model release, but you don't. There's no language here about a model release. All right. So maybe strike out the model release.
All right.
All right. Because
after looking at this, I'm not exactly sure why I included mono release.
Yeah. So, and then limits of liability.
Excuse me, sir. You have a new message.
In the event that the photographer is injured or becomes ill to photograph the event and a suitable replacement is not found, responsibility and liability is limited to the return of all payments received for the all.
I took this from somebody else.
Yeah. Maybe put deposits.
Okay.
Return of any and all monies received. Yeah. Okay. Return of all payments. Yeah, that's all right, I guess. If a portion of the images have been lost, stolen, or destroyed for reasons beyond the photographer's control, liability is limited to the prorated return of payments received. Okay, yeah. So basically, this is the what's it called? Acts of God clause. All right. So right here, what you have is things that protect you should something happen to you or your equipment or the images you took. All right. What's missing is any acts of God that may affect the client. All right. So what happens if you're photographing a wedding and 2 days before the wedding, the happy couple turn into bitter enemies and they cancel the wedding? All right. What happens to that money at that point?
That's next paragraph, event cancellation.
All right. All right. 24-hour notice. All right. Okay. So maybe expand on that. In case of cancellation due to. All right. So right here, this is a blanket cancellation. All right. If at any point it cancels for any reason whatsoever, they get their money back. Okay.
Which would include the event being canceled due to rain or hurricane?
Yeah. Right.
Agreed. I just need to ask that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be a royal pain in the ass.
Yeah. No. Which brings up a good point, because I remember towards the beginning of last year, one of the big discussions with a lot of event photographers is, how are photographers handling all these cancellations because of COVID? All right, because once things started shutting down, the wedding industry pretty much quit. All right, and a lot of wedding photographers were up in arms and said, "Oh my God, I have all these contracts out with deposits. What do I do?" All right, and a lot of them had not a lot of them. There were quite a few that had language in their contracts that say, hey, if it gets canceled, I keep the deposit. All right. And a lot of people the clients were getting upset at these photographers that had that clause, saying, hey, it's beyond my control. I didn't want to cancel it. The event canceled on us, which in turn now we have to cancel with you. We need that deposit back because eventually we're going to try this again. All right. So there was a lot of conversation about how do you handle these events. All right. And again, it goes back to, what kind of person are you? Are you going to be the jerk that says, oh, well, too bad, money's mine. I don't care about your feelings or your circumstance. I just want my money. Or do you say, hey, I understand you're in a tight spot. We can handle it one of two ways. Okay. I will hold on to deposit, and when you reschedule, we'll apply the deposit to your new date. Or I'll just return you the money. All right. And if you are a good business person, that money should still be in your account untouched because it's just a deposit. Okay. So, yep. Go ahead.
When I was shooting weddings way back when, I had my fee schedule was a deposit, so much either the week before and then so much upon delivery of the final product. Each one of those prices, each one of those dollar figures covered only up until the deposit covered my film.
Correct.
Okay. The next payment covered all my developing costs and my printing costs.
Correct.
My profit didn't come until the very end.
Yeah. Yeah. So So back then it was it used to be a third, and a third. That was standard practice. Digital kind of changed things a little bit. All right.
Right, but my point being is you don't have to get your $2,000 up front.
Right. So nowadays the biggest cost for most wedding photographers is ordering the books. All right, and usually those don't get ordered until after you've taken the photos. All right, simply because they are now a print on demand. So there's very little nowadays that prevents a photographer from refunding a full amount. All right. Now, that being said, is it fair to refund the full amount? You can write the language that says, hey, I've put in, a certain amount of work into this. What is that time worth? Give it a dollar amount and say, I will refund your deposit minus X number of dollars. It could be, $80, $100, all right? However, what is your time spent worth? All right? Give it a figure and then write it into the contract. All right, so typically for weddings, you're looking at $5,000 to $10,000 for photography services. Okay, $100 is nothing compared to $5,000 to $10,000. All right, so you may say, hey, for a wedding, I put a little bit more time. All right, maybe I go to the venue, I scope it out. So that takes gas. That takes gas. It takes time. So your non-refundable may be $250. Okay, write that in. All right. If it's a sweet 16 birthday party, you know why it says, hey, if you cancel within 24 hours, I keep $25. All right. Simply because you have put in some time. But these are personal decisions. You know, if you really don't put any time, you say, "Oh, you know what? I'll just deposit. I'll just return everything." All right, but it's not unusual to have some kind of retainer that you keep. All right, even if it's just a token, $25. Okay. All right. And then the rest is event information. All right. I think this probably should be towards the top. This should be towards the top. All right, because these are instructions. All right, that should be towards the top. Okay. The last thing is the signatures. Okay. Last thing is, all right. One thing I'm not on behalf of the client, I would probably get rid of on behalf of.
Okay.
Okay. Because this is saying anybody, not just the client, but anybody can sign this on behalf of the client.
Okay.
Right.
Again, that was probably something.
So
that was probably something that they either got from another thing or having worked for a corporation.
No, this
usually you have the secretary of the corporation or a director of a corporation.
This is probably somebody trying to make their contract read a little bit more legal by putting in flowery language that has no meaning.
Okay.
All right. So
you have to remember, I worked for a very anal company.
Yeah. So you need to include those items that I mentioned earlier. Rearrange this a little bit better so it reads what you're promising first and then what their responsibilities are.
Okay.
And then the signatures last. Okay. So hopefully that made sense to everybody.
Thank you. On another note, as you know, I was doing that photography. I never made a contract. I did a couple of volunteer things and I did a couple of paid things. All it ended up was covering the cost of my advertising in local weekly newspapers. But now that COVID has happened and I'm a little older and collecting full Social Security, I don't know if I really want to do events again, or if people are going to do events, because a lot of things are being canceled. Case in point, the Balloon Fest in Plainville, where photographers love to shoot.
Yeah.
That's been canceled already.
Yep.
And I think once we come out of this, if we ever fully come out of this, when people are comfortable, I just don't think you're going to see things. I don't know. Right now it's a little discouraging.
It is, but you have to understand that now that the vaccine is rolled out, I was listening to a thing, an interview with Dr. Fauci, and one of the questions was, is there a possibility that COVID-19 will be eradicated, with vaccines and medications? And he says, probably not. COVID is one of those things that probably cannot be eradicated, but hopefully what this will do is it will, control it. And that being said, it's going to take a while to get back to normal, what is going to be considered the new normal. But yeah, we're going to be getting back to events where, being in and amongst other people isn't necessarily going to be such a heavy burden with social distancing and wearing masks. It's going to take a while for that herd immunity to kick in, but we'll get back there. We just got to play it safe.
And the main
Somebody
time, go out
likes-
there and have fun.
As somebody who likes to take pictures of people, events, and all that type of stuff, I feel this last year I've been here. And I'm not-
Yeah, no, absolutely. The events that I've been photographing have definitely been skeleton crews, people wearing masks, people keeping a certain distance. You know, where it used to be, like for a ribbon cutting, there'd be anywhere from 50 to 60 people. It's been a dozen. Which doesn't make it feel very festive when you're making this big celebration and it's supposed to be this milestone achievement, and you look out and the majority of the people there are actually behind the ribbon to do the cutting.
Doug, the only way you can do this, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. The only way you can do group photography now, take a look at me. This is the visual. The only way you can do a group photography now is to take your camera up on a Zoom call and do this. Look at me, Doug. Look at the camera.
Yeah.
Here. This is the only way, guys, you can do group photography these days. I'm sorry, but that's what is happening.
Yeah.
Case in point, there's a bunch of us, and it's out on the internet. And if anybody wants it, I'll send you a link to it. We do. I'm part of an oldies fan group in New York City where we get together once a year and we have guest speakers, people who work in New York radio or singers or what have you. And we had the daughter of Harry Harrison on. He worked at CBS FM, WABC, and WNCA. Harry died a year ago. Just before he died, he got inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame. But in order to have her as the guest speaker, it had to be a Zoom call like this.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't want to attend the Zoom call, so we did. I hosted that. That's what I told you about that. So I hosted it and I recorded it, cleaned up a few things, like when things freeze, and I put it out on the internet and put some B-roll on it. So it's gotten a lot of hits, but that's the way we had to do it this year.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
And I'm getting picture here.
Yeah. So while you're talking, I figure I'd put you up there. All right. One of the other things that I want to discuss today, and Jill asked me about this earlier today, and she asked if I could talk a little bit about this image. If those of you who've been on the Learn Photography with Duck Facebook page recently, Brian posted a copy of an article that Shelton Life did on me for the spring, their spring issue. They come out twice a year, spring and fall, and for the spring issue, they did a nice little write-up on me, and they featured a couple of images, and this was one of them that I submitted for them to consider for the article. And Jill was pretty impressed by the image, and she asked me if I could talk about it, and I said I would do so. All right, so this particular image was created specifically for my portfolio. This is not a client shot. All right. However, the background to this is at the time when I did create this, I was working with a restaurant shooting their menu. And I wanted to create something that would kind of, sort of make them think, all right, make them think a little bit outside of the box of what they could do for themselves. So one of the things about portfolios is that if I were to put into my portfolio the actual work that I do, my portfolio would be pretty bland. all right, it would be filled with a bunch of stuff shot on white, and my portfolio would pretty much look like flipping through a bunch of Amazon listings, all right, because that's the majority of the work that I do. I do a lot of, actually, here, I'll even show you right here. This is the something that I shot yesterday for a client. Okay, so if I put this on my website, some piece of equipment shot on white, it'd be very boring, right? And then nobody would want to hire me. The purpose of a portfolio is severalfold. One is to showcase what your potential is as a photographer, all right? What can you really deliver a client, all right? And the other thing is to kind of tell a story about the kind of work that you do, all right? So I am primarily a product and food photographer. So when you look through my portfolio, you're going to see that my portfolio is pretty much a bunch of food items and product items, okay? So I wanted something with a little bit of pizzazz, a little bit of pow, okay? And I had recently done, actually, let me pull it up. I had recently done another image with what's called an exploded view. Let's see, portfolio products. Let's see, this one right here. All right, I had done this image for a client on spec, meaning on speculation. They ended up not using it, but it became a really cool portfolio piece for me. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to capture kind of this feeling, but with food. So at the time I was shooting a menu, I came up with this concept of an exploded view of a salad. So all these ingredients are kind of like being tossed up, okay? So it's also a play on the word tossed salad, all right? So to make this, I actually built a wire rig that looked like clotheslines, all right? So if you've ever seen like turn of the century New York Bowery back alley photos where you see the two buildings and then the clotheslines going from window to window, all right? That's pretty much what this rig was a bunch of wires in levels going across, and on this wire rig I literally floated these rings of onions, these little tomatoes, these croutons, and the lettuce leaves, okay? And the dish and the bowl are propped up on pieces of cardboard, okay? And what I did is I set my background first with the avocados and the lettuce and the tomatoes and the spoon and fork and that little block of cheese in the background, and with the bowls, the plate and bowl empty. All right. So I got my composition. All right. I got my lighting working well. All right. And then I took the dish and the bowl out and I photographed a clean plate. All right. And what I mean by clean plate is, just a picture of the background with none of the subject in view. Okay. I then propped my dish in the bowl up on pieces of cardboard, all right? And I photographed them to make sure that they were looking well. Once I got them, I built my rack above it, and I floated all these little items. And what ended up happening is the lettuce looked too stacked. All right, so I very quickly got rid of the lettuce. All right, and I took, I guess the best description is a roach clip on the end of a wire. And I would clip different pieces of lettuce, and I would hold it in the scene at various places. Okay, so each one of these little pieces of lettuce was photographed independently in various locations throughout the scene. And I actually photographed more than I needed. All right, and that's the key to building a composition like this. You're going to photograph each individual item in more places than what you really need. All right, and then when you import it as layers into Photoshop, because the camera was stationary, everything is kind of in their own place. And at that point, all I had to do was Photoshop the piece of wire out, and I would have this floating piece of lettuce. And then I just picked and chose which piece of lettuce worked best. All right, so you can see that some are overlapping in front of others, things like that. So one of the key things was keeping an eye out for what are called tangents. And tangents, one of the biggest examples of tangents is, imagine taking a picture of a person and there's a tree right here. All right, it looks like it's growing out of their head, but it's actually behind them. That's a visual tangent. Okay, the other visual tangent is when two things just barely touch or just barely overlap. Right, you don't want that. All right, see how there's space here. All right, you don't want that to be, let's see if I can move out of the way. Oh, wrong way. All right, you don't want that to look like they're just touching, all right, even though there's space. All right, you either want space in between them, or you want a very clear overlap, all right, so that you know one's in front of the other. So visual tangents are things that you have to consider. Okay, and as a matter of fact, one problem area is probably this one right here, where the lettuce and the onion are just barely touching. Okay, that's an oversight, and I should have corrected that. But anyway, so once I had all these images, it was just a matter of removing the wire structure from the scene, and the final composition makes it look like the salad is just being kind of like tossed up into the air. Okay, so that is how I created my tossed salad. All right.
Real nice job on that, Doug.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. It was a bit of a challenge, but it was fun. You know, and it's funny because shortly after that, I did this one, which utilized the same rig. All right, and what I did is I put the bun, the ham, the cheese, the lettuce, the tomatoes, the onions, and the top of the bun on different levels of that wire rig above my cutting board. And this was shot in one take. All right, unlike the salad. The salad was in multiple, takes because of, the composition. This one I was able to do all in one shot because the wire rig held everything in place. And as you can see, actually, if you look at the cheese, all right, one wire, and you can see where the wire. You can see where the wire. See how the cheese kind of drapes there and there? That's where the wire was. So even though I removed the wire, you can see where it actually went. And where the wire went through here. All right, I just used the not the clone stamp, but the magic wand tool to remove the wire. So same process, different little layout. So anyhow, Jill, hopefully that gives you a little insight to that tossed salad.
You did. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. All right, any other questions? Anybody got any other questions? All right, this actually turned out to be a pretty good session, thanks to Bill, and thank you for sharing that contract with the rest of us. That was pretty insightful. I appreciate it.
I'm going to turn on the mic. Thanks for critiquing it, Doug.
I never would have thought to do something on contracts like that. So that's cool. Okay. All right, guys. Don't forget, next Monday is Patreon only session. I will be going over a nice little 3-tone system for composition, both out in the field and in photo editing. The way I use it, it's a lot stronger. It's a much stronger tool for use in editing than out in the field. But I think I know I use it out in the field, even if it's subconsciously. So hopefully you'll get something out of it. All right, and then again, keep an eye out on Facebook, both on my Facebook page and if you are a member of the Hartford Amateur Photographers Group, Robert Fielder's group. We're going to be posting something there for our upcoming off-camera flash workshop in New Haven. It's going to be Saturday next month on the 17th, and it's going to be from 10 in the morning till roughly about 2 o'clock, with probably a lunch break in the middle. And we got 2 models lined up for that day, and we're going to have two complete kits, so we can have 2 groups going at the same time. So look forward to doing that and actually getting outdoors and photographing people rather than doing stuff here on Zoom. Okay, so stay tuned for that. All right. All righty, guys.
Hey, Doug.
Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you here next Monday.
Okay.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.